A1 is back, and if you didn't know, it got taken away for a bit due to a recall on the whole product line, but now it's back. But is it better than ever? Well, nevertheless, I'd actually argue that in a few ways, it's better than the X1 Carbon. Yeah, seriously. And it's also cheaper than many people think. So here's what's happened, what they've done about it, and why the A1 should be your next printer. Let's go over all that now. Hi, I'm Ross, and this is Fohammer Videos. So the point of this video even existing is from Bambu asking me if I could make a video about the A1 bed replacement. But instead of the replacement bed coming to me over a month ago when it was delivered, it actually ended up being delivered to another address in Nottingham, which was the same street address as mine, but the wrong postcode. A lovely old lady who lived there held onto it for me for several weeks. She lives alone and doesn't have a phone, so I doubt she's watching this, but thank you, Esther, you're an absolute star. But anyway, the point of this video was to talk about how simple the bed replacement is. But a ton of channels have done that, so instead I just want to use this as a vehicle to once again talk about the A1 and why you should, without a shadow of a doubt, choose this as your next printer. And if you still have an original A1 back from launch, you really should do this replacement. If you've been updating the firmware of your A1, the machine itself will tell you that there's been a recall on these. The issue seems to stem from wear in the heatbed cable. The initial reports warned you to look out for a kink in the cable, and if you had this, stop using your printer. And it's not been clearly confirmed what issue this causes, but I think we can all clearly assume what happens when electrical cables get worn through. But Bambu responded to this issue fairly swiftly. Initially, if you had the kink, stop using the printer, but then they told everyone to stop using the printer until they could get a fix out. And that fix was, send it back to them, or just get the bed replacement. And as I said, the bed replacement videos have been done by other channels, and I followed the guide by Bambu. But since I filmed it, here's a quick recap. Turn it off, move the X-axis bar out of the way and the print head, take off the printing plate, pop out some rubber bungs on the bed and remove 4 screws. Move the bed out of the way, lean it sideways on a box, remove the cables from underneath. Then remove screws and take off the rear cover and do the same with the front cover. Take out 3 plugs and the earth cable, pull out the old cable from the unit, and that's the old bed removed. Install the new bed by screwing in the 4 screws from the top again and put the rubber bungs back in. Feed all the cables you unplugged through the gaps the old ones came out of. This is the trickiest bit, so use a tool to guide the cables to a place they're accessible, plug them back in, reconnect the earth cable and push the big cable bung back through the chassis. Make sure the cables align correctly before reattaching the base plates, plug the extra cables back in, and that's mostly it. But now they also give you a silicone backstop to prevent us crushing the cable up against flat surfaces and causing bends that just should not be in this cable. But that's it, that's the whole replacement. Is it easy? Well, it depends on your skill level with basic electronics, but I would say it's straightforward and the guide is solid, both the video and the written version. Just make sure you unplug the printer before doing any of this, and it should be doable for most of us except maybe the most heavy-handed people out there. But if you're used to 3D printing, I'm pretty sure patience is a skill you've been developing anyway. And for everyone not so keen on this, like I said, you do have the option of sending it back to Bambu. And that for me is an echo of what Bambu are doing so well and few other brands are. Now, in a perfect world, this issue would never have occurred in the first place, but since it did, could Bambu have done a better job of resolving it for us? Perhaps. But I can confidently say I haven't seen another printer brand resolve issues so well. In fact, there are other brands who release printers with issues and their solution is just to ignore the problem as best they can and then just release a revised version of that printer at a higher price point with some more letters strapped on the end. And you know who I'm talking about, but if you don't, just ask in the comments because the next person who replies will tell you. Now, I want to get this out of the way early on because unfortunately I still get these sort of comments, and whilst I'm thick-skinned, it just does my head in and makes me sigh every time I see this sort of thing. So before you go and comment about how much of a Bambu shill I am, let me address that right here. Yes, it's true, I love Bambu as a brand because of what they give us with their products. I'm not going to lie and say I don't. And just because I provide independent product reviews doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion. And I know the audience I've built has come to trust my views over the time they've spent with me because they're willing to listen and hear my justification. But if you don't agree with my reasoning, or perhaps just don't share my perspective of what you want a 3D printer for, then that's fine. These aren't the printers for you, and that's okay too. Maybe it's just I'm not the reviewer for you. Again, that's totally okay. My goal on this channel is for you to get a printer you want and be happy with your purchase. So if my reasons for owning a printer are not even similar to yours, please find another channel who shares your view. Because my reasons for owning a 3D printer are that my hobby is nothing to do with 3D printing, or at least very little. As I've said before on other videos, my hobby is everything I do after something is printed, be that building or just painting cool stuff. The point of me doing reviews is to speak to the people out there looking for a similar thing, and what I want is a printer that provides the smallest barrier between clicking print and having an object that I would consider is good enough for whatever I want to do with it. And to me, that is what all Bambu printers have done. Yes, there's still maintenance to perform, but I'm looking for something that's on the level of current 2D printers. But with things now like nozzles that can be removed with just a latch, this is one area where I consider this printer to be a better choice than either the P1 or the X1 series from Bambu. Yeah, the A1's a little slower because it's a bed slinger rather than a Core XY printer, but this easy nozzle replacement, along with the fact that they worked out a way to purge less filament during color changes, are two advancements which make this a better option for many beginners. And the fact that the slicer is so easy to use, and now they've integrated Maker's World right into it, making this machine and thousands of models immediately accessible to users who, well, like me, just want to see something cool and then click print. And even despite the many people who are hard set on 3D printing staying a hobby, I've seen countless comments from experienced users with print farms advising that they'll be picking up A1 printers because even despite their own love for tinkering with printers, many of them even are at the point where they just want a printer to work and have picked up one or even a few of these just to have as solid workhorses. And I also need to point out that these are cheaper than many people think. Don't get me wrong, they aren't cheap, but I've seen so many people commenting on reviews I do of similar printers telling me the Bambu A1 is $550. But the reason for that is when you visit the page, it shows you the A1 with the AMS Lite by default. If you click the little button to switch to the A1 Solo on its own, that's only $400. And I know I flippantly said only $400 like that's chump change, but I just mean it's less than most people realise. This is still $70 more than what I'd say right now is the next feature matching equivalent, and at the time of recording I'd say that's Anycubic's upcoming Cobra 3 that I don't have yet and I haven't seen any reviews of. Anycubic's previous FDM printers are okay, but they just aren't as easily accessible as the A1. Not by far. And whilst I don't want to critique them printers anymore too much, because yes, they are a cheaper way to get into the 3D printing hobby, you need to ask, is that price difference worth it for a printer that just works and is more approachable than any other, so much so that it's light years ahead? Is that price difference worth it to you to get a trusted, known working printer from a brand that has not released a new printer in the X series since the X1, where other brands in the same time have released 3, nearly 4 new Core XY machines? And yeah, that's the same brand I alluded to earlier. And for me, and what I want, I would say that it is easily worth that price difference for the filament wasted and the less time spent just getting many of these less accessible printers to work. Never mind getting them to work well. You see, the X1 is still selling now in the hundreds because, like the A1, in the time it's been out, it's only gotten better with regular updates from the brand. It's had a myriad of official user support and maintenance guides, and a growing community of helpful users who will encourage you to get the best out of all of the machines. Is Bambu perfect? No. For one thing, I do see a lot of comments on my channel saying their support is terrible. Now, I've never had an issue, and I do see comments like this on every 3D printer brand, and maybe it's just I see more comments about Bambu because this brand has a much larger market share. So I guess I'll say this, and this is to Bambu. If you're leaving people raising tickets and you're not at least responding to every one of them, that's not good enough. Do better. But I might be wrong here, and you know whether I am or I'm not. You don't need to answer to me, you need to answer to your community. I feel, and I might be wrong here, but I feel every customer deserves at least a response. And if this is a case of people not raising tickets the right way, then Well, it's Bambu's job to make it clearer how to raise them properly. I always raise my tickets via the phone app as per the recommended approach on the Bambu wiki, and I've had incredibly thorough responses within 24 hours each time. So as I've said, I personally don't see the results of this complaint, but if others are, I also don't want to ignore them as invalid comments if they do have merit. But look, to finish off, I'll echo what I've said throughout. The Bambu One is the best bed slinger of its size by a clear mile, and it may not even be the best hardware available, but I'm going to recommend it happily because of the software support and community behind it. It's just so much less of a headache than anything else. And you may be out there watching thinking, oh, but this is better hardware for much less of a price. Yeah, that's great. By all means, if you want to spend the time getting that printer working and it's easy for you and you've got that knowledge, fantastic, I'm happy for you. But I don't have that time. I just want to open a box, plug some filament in and go print that helmet and have it work. And that's what this does every single time. It's been years now that Bambu has been around, and these machines should be operating as a loud call for all the other brands to wake the hell up, learn what it is the average user needs and deliver that. But instead, I've spent 2 years looking at all of those other brands, and aside from maybe Anchor Make, who have all but since disappeared from the scene, none of them get it. Yes, they make working printers, but if any of those brands even want a chance of tapping into the wider community of new printing adopters, they need to make easier printers. And for those of you who are new to my channel who may be thinking I'm no more than a Bambu shill, let me leave you with this. I'm not paid to make any of these videos. I only earn money when you click my affiliate links and make a purchase. They're down in the description. And Bambu actually have a lower commission rate than any other brand. In fact, it's almost half as much as most other brands and less than a third as much of some brands. So if I were a so-called shill, it would be in my best interests financially to tell you to get the most expensive printer with the highest commission rates for me. But I'm still recommending the Bambu A1, and that's because the only thing I see that gives my channel any real value in this community is your trust that I'm telling you the truth. If you understand that I'm being nothing but honest with you all, and especially those of you who share some of my perspectives on why you want a 3D printer, then you'll trust me that as soon as someone comes along and actually trumps Bambu, I'll be the first to tell you about it. Until then, just whatever printer you're looking at, you'll have an easier time in your budget range if you stretch to the nearest Bambu. So that's it, guys. The A1's fixed now, or being fixed for many of you who may still be waiting for these replacement beds or waiting for Bambu to get back to you with your replacement printer. But either way, you can still buy the A1 now and all of these problems are solved. So now that's out the way, I think it's time Bambu move on to whatever their next release is. And I think I'm not the only one who's thinking it needs to be a larger printer. 256 cubed has been great for a while, but we need something that is helmet class from you guys now, please. Something like an enclosed X1 or even a P1, but ideally with a big enough build plate that we can print the likes of helmets or small cosplay props on it. And ideally, if you can, integrate some of the new hot end features like the quick swap nozzle and the less waste when you change colors that you put into the A1 and the A1 Mini. That's my hope. Will that come? Who knows? I genuinely know nothing, but I am waiting for the day that Bambu drops me that email because I'm so eager to show you what they do next. And I will. I'll be upset if the next thing they show isn't a bigger printer. I want to say thanks for watching and thanks to our members for supporting this channel. Please consider joining them and get your name up in the lights too. And until next time, yo Adrian, we did it. Fohammer out.